Dear panelists, the session is now being recorded. So get your best smiles. The event is starting.
So I see that still people are joining the webinar, so we will wait, propose 1-2 more minutes, and then we will officially start the webinar. So yeah, let's start. I think yeah, more people can join afterwards. That's not a problem. Good morning, everyone. I would like to sincerely welcome you to our webinar, Unlocking Community-Based Flexibility to Transform the Energy System. My name is Sarah Tachelet. I'm the Communications Manager for Rescue PU, which is the European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives. And I'm very excited and happy to be hosting this webinar today together with my colleague, Roland Toual. As you may have noticed from the invitation, this is actually the second webinar we jointly organized together with partners from 3 European funded projects. So that is the Rescue VPP project, the CVPP project, and the FlexCoop project. In November, we had our first webinar, and back then it was already amazing to see how much interest there actually is in this topic, and as well how many good practices there are out there from citizen energy initiatives that are experimenting with these flexibility services. So today we will try to further clarify the scope of demand-side flexibility services offered by energy cooperatives. And we will also try to share some insights in how citizens can be actively engaged to take a more active role in balancing the grid. And what is interesting is that we will illustrate all of this with hands-on experience from the ground, from cooperatives that actually were involved in the FlexCoop project. So that's also maybe something I need to mention. This second webinar will be the last one under this format because actually the FlexCoop project is coming to an end this month. So therefore, it's really exciting to see that we now can share some insights from the cooperatives that were involved in that project. But we will definitely have more of these events later on. I think the upcoming months and years, we will definitely keep on talking about this topic, also under the flag of the 2 other projects that will keep on going. Before I take you through the agenda, maybe I would like to mention some practicalities. This webinar is being recorded and it will be made publicly available afterwards. So you are aware of that. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. We will not stop or pause the presentations because of timing, but what we will do is that by the end of the webinar, we will provide some time for your questions. What we noticed last time is that there is a kind of a spontaneous exchange already in the chat, and we would like to encourage that. So feel free to respond on somebody else's questions. We noticed last time already there's quite some knowledge and experienced people amongst the participants. So we really encourage this dynamic exchange. Maybe we can have a quick look at the agenda. Roland, if you can share. So yes, I'm giving the welcome word now. After that, my colleague Roland will take it further, giving an overview of the possible flexibility services by cooperatives. And after that, Luc van Sumeren from the University of Eindhoven and Sylvia Breukers from Dunworks, they will explain a little bit more about their methodology, the MORE model, and how it's a tool actually to engage citizens to become active in flexibility services. After that, we will take some time to get some insights in experience from cooperatives from the FlexCoop project that actually experimented with these services. So that is Pau Panel from Somenergia and René van Vliet of Energy Samen. And afterwards, we will take a little bit of time to ask all the people that presented, to ask them some questions in a panel discussion about barriers, enablers to implement these type of services. And then, of course, as said, we will take some time for your questions. I think that's it from my side. Welcome again, enjoy, and I give the floor to Roland Toual, my colleague. Roland, can you unmute?
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. I will start if of course the presentation wants to follow up. Okay, I will introduce you the flexibility services cooperatives can offer. This is the result of the research we've done through the 3 years of the FlexCoop project, looking at what exists already in the market and how cooperatives could size this opportunity. Most of these arguments are taken from this beautiful and glossy report that is being published just today. This is, you'll find in there clarification on the new actors of the digital energy market, an introduction to flexibility services, also elements from Somenergia and Energy Samen's experience in FlexCoop, and you'll also find interview with existing EU aggregators. We've put a lot of effort in this publication. You'll find information from today and more into this report, and well, we really hope you'll enjoy it. It's already live on our website, and we are very open to any comments you may have on it, because as Sarah said, this discussion will keep on going at the cooperatives level and at the overall federation level. Okay, so looking at the content of my presentation, I will make a quick reminder of what's been said in the last time, clarifying energy communities and specific activities. I will provide you some insights. Well, this might be a reminder for most of you on flexibility services. And finally, we'll give some few words about what the role of cooperatives can be. Okay, so let's look at energy communities and collective self-consumption, by example. Well, summary of a previous episode, for those who were not here last time, energy communities in the EU regulation are not related directly to collective self-consumption. They are not directly related to microgrids. They are more organizational concepts. So these two notions are taken from the Clean Energy Package. Well, the package on itself, it's 8 regulation, but we are looking at the Electricity Directive and the Renewable Electricity Energy Directive, where these two concepts are taken from: Citizens Energy Community on one side and Renewable Energy Community on the other side. These concepts are defined by the how energy services are being performed, not which services we are talking about. So the criteria are about being open and voluntary organization based on effective control of the members, with natural person, local authorities, and small enterprises as members, and with environmental, social, and local economic benefits as main purpose. So these are very much the core criteria of the two communities. If you look at them, you quickly realize that they match, they overlap pretty well with the cooperative criteria that we use, that are the 7 principles from the International Cooperative Alliance, which would let me and us as a federation believe that cooperatives are citizens energy communities with additional criteria. To be or not to be an energy community, at this stage, most of the activities that are being introduced in the clean energy package, like renewable self-consumption, I mentioned also closed distribution system, because this is one way you can perform microgrid in the system, which has been kind of a buzzword in the last, for good and bad reasons, but a buzzword in the last energy debate. Well, you can perform all these activities with energy communities, of course, but there is no specific incentives, and you can very obviously also perform them with non-energy communities market actors, conventional entities. As the Electricity Directive itself remembers it, the definition of citizen energy communities does not prevent the existence of other citizen initiatives, such as those stemming from private law agreement. So it's one type of agreement among other possible. Okay, just a quick example of also how it is complex for us to make this clarity around community. It's a word that has been used also in the market for some years. Zonen community, well, is a conventional market, well, rather innovative market offer, but it remains offered by a market actor. Zonen is now owned by Shell, and it's pretty obvious that in Shell, the citizens will not have effective control. They will not have open and voluntary participation and control the actual entity. They will just receive the actual commercial service, and that's it. So that's where the difference lies. Okay, and well, if you want to understand what energy community is about, here, well, I've taken the first and the last benefits of a nice paper by Ms. Berka and Creamer on the benefits of energy communities. The first one is about socio-economic regeneration. And a quick way to understand it is through a study made by our member Energy Partagée. They've realized that in France, citizen projects have 2 times more benefits than actual private projects. And so that's because of the local hiring and also the direct redistribution of revenues of such projects. But also this paper talks about empowerment. And I think that in these challenging times of climate change, empowering people about taking action to fight climate change is a critical, a critical tool that will be very much needed in the future. Okay, so that was for the introduction. Now let's go to the landscape of flexibility services. As I said, a reminder for most of you, but also new services for quite a significant number of our own members at Rescop EU. So in the paper I just mentioned at the beginning, we talk about demand side flexibility. to clarify, what is it? We always talk about flexibility, but when we talk about demand side flexibility, this is the ability of customer to deviate from their normal electricity consumption or production, in case of rooftop solar PV. So their consumption profile in response to price signals or market incentives. This is not our definition. It's taken from the EG3 of the Smart Grid Task Force. But this includes loads, for example, a heat pump or a boiler, electric boiler. It may also include demand side generation, as I just mentioned, or demand side storage. Okay, all of these are adaptable loads that can be shifted in times. Okay, so what can we do while shifting these loads or generation or storage unit? Well, the first usage you can do is to match production and consumption. Maybe that was one of the first use of demand side flexibility. So you can do really much also with a centralized production unit, but also decentralized, and that will be more and more needed. But as you know, the market is now also getting very much decentralized, and we're getting prosumers. So it doesn't always happen at the same place in the system chain, and this will be provided by or supported by different market actors. But there are also complementary service you can provide. You can do balancing. Well, the very obvious entity of doing that is the TSO. They are in charge of the balancing of the overall market. But they are not the only one. You also have the BRPs who can use this flexibility to balance their own portfolio of consumers, for example, when they are retailers. Okay. Last but not least, that's also a hot debate. You can use it for congestion management. So there are a lot of debates at the EU level for quite some years now about how DSO can use flexibility to avoid congestion on the local network, just to flatten the consumption or generation curve and make sure that the network can handle new distribution energy resources on the network. So that's one use you can make of one other use, but well, they're very obviously not the only one system operator, so TSO can do it. So at the end of the day, this is quite a confusing picture that you may find, and with the report I've just mentioned, we've tried to clarify it further, providing who are the different service providers that can support these different services, and where do they end up in the energy system, and with which benefits for the customer and for the overall society. Well, have a look at the report if you want to see this more in details. And to conclude, what is the role of cooperatives in this picture? Well, I've taken here examples from our various projects. It's of course not an exhaustive picture at all, but as I said, flexibility services can support retailers to balance their portfolio, or to purchase more cheaper electricity or greener electricity on the wholesale market, for example. That was the first idea. And this is something that SumEnergia is very close to implement, has been trying out in the FlexScope project. And as a retailer in Spain, it is close to implement dynamic pricing in, for example, to achieve such a thing. So it's really much something that we can achieve right now. Also, as an ESCO, an energy cooperative can support collective self-consumption or individual self-consumption. And we've seen with the Interreg project CVPP that Energent and Lunen, who are already installing distributed energy resources, solar panels, essentially, could take such a role in a close future. And finally, the role of aggregator. Well, this encompass a variety of situation, but at least it's a rather simple version of the aggregator could be implemented by Energy Zaman, as they've been experimenting in FlexScope and beyond with their own initiative. But in all these projects, we always needed the support of third parties, and we were very lucky to have supportive consortium to help us trying out in FlexScope in CVPP. The main challenge, I think, for now and the next step, that's how I will conclude, is what about the digital service provider? In all these cases, we needed third parties. I think the next challenge to embrace is to try and be able to provide the tools for cooperatives to adopt these new services, these new business models. And well, this is the tough challenge and next step for us as cooperatives. Well, I will conclude on this word and pass on to my partners. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I'm waiting for your questions.
So yes, indeed. If you have any questions for Roland, you can put them in the chats. So we will keep them for the last part of this webinar. And then now I would like to invite Luc van Summeren and Sylvia Breukers to give their presentation about the MORE model.
Yes, thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for having us. I'm going to share my screen. Let's move back to the first page. I'm sorry. Let's see. Yes, here we are. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Roland, for the very nice introduction. And I'm sure to go to your website and download the report, which apparently also is a very nice summary of the rather increasingly complex system which is developing, and whereby it's quite a challenge to see how a complex system will continue to offer opportunities for cooperative and citizens initiatives. So we try to keep up with the complexity, and that is a bridge to our presentation. My name is Sylvia Breukers, and together with Luc van Summeren, we are have been engaged in the community-based virtual power plant project. Luc is based at the Technical University of Eindhoven, where he has done a lot of work within this CVPP project, and he's currently also writing a PhD thesis based on a lot of empirical work with the communities involved in this project. I am from DuneWorks. We are a research and advice company. We focus on the societal energy transition in various projects, and always we have as a central point of departure, how is the energy transition affecting citizens, people in their daily work and life, and what are the opportunities of citizens and of communities to participate in the shaping of our future energy system. So to a large extent, this is also about getting to grips with this complexity. How can we engage others while we don't even understand ourselves very well where it is going? So we try to take others on this riding train, if you will. And I think the community-based virtual power plant project is an example of a project where we try to get to grips with this. The project, very important starting point in this project is that we start with community values, and based on these community values, we try to develop ideas for a virtual power plant. In a bit, Luc will explain how we understand a virtual power plant and what it is and everything. So I give just a few more background informative notes on this project. Here are some of the project facts and the partners. You don't see the name of DuneWorks because we were a sub-partner. We were supporting the Technical University with some of the work. Luc and I have been working very hard on the MORE model, which is one of the outcomes of this project that we will present about today. So the first part of the CVPP project ran from 2017 to 2020. There are 3 implementation communities in the Netherlands Lune is one example, known by some of you. In Belgium, in Ghent has developed a project, and in Ireland, there's also various energy communities that have been involved. But next to these implementation communities that realized virtual power plants, we also worked with replication communities, communities that are interested in doing more than just saving energy, energy efficiency, and generation. And we worked together with these communities to explore what the possibilities are for them. And to that end, we developed an approach, which is called the Mobilization and Replication Model, or MORE model. We developed this together with and for these 6 replication communities in Belgium and the Netherlands. We did that between January and July. And I know that some of them are present at this meeting. For instance, Klimaan, I just noticed. But some other communities are the Humarishof, which is a co-housing community, Zuidrand, and in the Netherlands, for instance, KNN in Apeldoorn, Warenargade, and Moos, which is also based in Apeldoorn. So those are the communities we worked with, and we had several workshops with them. So we tried to develop this supportive tool, and we did in total 10 workshops. And the first workshop was actually almost exactly 1 year ago. And that was the first and final workshop that we could do live. So we also had to find solutions in working with energy communities under the COVID-19 circumstances, which means that we did a lot of these workshops, or most of them, online, which was also a very interesting experience. We learned a lot, and we had to adapt the model based on all the lessons learned during these workshops. So we have this MORE model that we will present about, but in addition to that, I would also like to point out to you the starters guide, which is in Dutch, the starters kits, and in English, which is available at the website of the project, and which is basically what it says, a starters guide. I want to hand over the floor quickly to Luc, but one final word. The MORE model is an approach to help energy communities to explore the possibilities of a community-based virtual power plant and to imagine what a CVPP could look like. There's no energy community that starts where a person wakes up one day and thinks, I'd like to have a virtual power plant. So it's also a very difficult thing to imagine. So from the basic ideas and community values that community members may have, we try to help them in this sort of imagining process what their community could look like in the future. The MORE model can be used by process moderators, and these can be a variety of people. They can be active members in the community energy initiative or cooperative. They can be intermediary organizations or other enthusiasts or professionals. And the basic starting point, what also should be mentioned, is that the MORE model supports active energy communities that already have done something in relation to installing some solar panels, or already very active with energy efficiency and energy saving, and that want to then further explore. That was a brief introduction. I'll hand the floor to Luc. So Luc, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I will also start sharing my screen. Thank you, Sylvia, for the nice introduction, and also Roland. I think it strongly links to the flexibility service that Roland already introduced. So now I will continue, and I'm going to introduce to you the mobilization and replication model. But first, I quickly explain what we mean with community-based virtual power plant and why it is an interesting innovation for energy communities. So until recently, most people were a passive consumer, so they bought energy from an energy supplier. But more and more people are now starting to also produce their own electricity with, for instance, solar panels. They can do that as an individual, as a prosumer, but they can also do it as part of an energy community or an energy cooperative. But more and more prosumers are also installing batteries, electric vehicles, but also an energy management system, which allows them to become a smart prosumer. So someone who can manage electricity demand and supply within the household. But of course, this can also be done collectively. And this is what we mean with a community-based virtual power plant. And the community-based virtual power plant basically is a portfolio of renewable energy sources, controllable appliances, and energy storage systems, which can be aggregated and coordinated by one ICT system, an energy management system. And it allows communities to manage energy demand and supply within their community and to trade energy or flexibility on the market. So basically to provide these flexibility service, but also to trade electricity. So let's go, now we go to the why question. So why do you want to consider a virtual power plant or a community-based virtual power plant? So why a virtual power plant? But basically a virtual power plant allows a group of households of prosumers to work together and act as one entity, as one virtual entity. And this allows you to collaborate with the large system actors, and also to participate on the energy market, because then you become big enough to well, make a difference to do more things than that you would have been doing in your own. But then the next question is, why a community-based virtual power plant? So why, as a community, would you want to start involved in this? So questions that are relevant that you might have are, how can we keep the self-generated energy within our community? So this is about self-consumption. Can we support the matching and supply of demand on the energy network? Can we contribute to a more sustainable, but also to a more just energy system? How can we better understand all the challenges of the energy transition and also investigate what role we want to play in solving this? So how do we want to contribute to this more renewable energy system? Maybe you have a question about, is it possible for households or community members who don't have the money or don't have a suitable roof to also become part of an energy initiative? And also another question could be, what if you generate more electricity than you consume? Can you maybe sell this surplus on the market as a community? And one question that's also came up in the communities is, well, can I share or sell the surplus of my energy to my neighbors? So it's about peer-to-peer energy trading or a local energy market. Well, if these questions are, if you have these kind of questions, then well, we've developed a More model to help explore if these things can become a possibility for your community. So from this, we go to the More model, which is an approach to support energy communities in exploring what are the possibilities for energy trading, but also flexibility services. And basically it consists of three main parts: content, process, and tools. And I will start with the process part. The process part is basically an interactive backcasting process, which helps you to explore the future possibilities. And well, it's different from forecasting. Forecasting is about looking into the future based on, trying to predict the future based on ongoing trends. But backcasting, on the other hand, is starting with a desirable vision of the future. So you imagine what do we want to do in the future? What kind of energy system do we want to have in the future? And from this vision, you look back to the present and to explore what is needed to realize this future vision. And such an approach is very useful, especially in innovative projects, because Because in such a project, you face many uncertainties and challenges. And such a backcasting process invites people to dream about a desirable but still realistic future. And to think a bit more out of the box and to come up with novel solutions instead of doing what already is being doing, others already are doing. So what does it look like, such a backcasting process? So basically, it consists of 8 steps, but I want to summarize it in 4 steps. So the first step is to explore the current situation of the energy community, not just in terms of what kind of technology is already there, but more about what are the most important community values. So what kind of things does the community think is really important? How is the community organized? What kind of technology is already there? How are they making use of different types of infrastructure? What are the policies and incentive schemes that are already there, which they are making use of? And what kind of resources does the community have in terms of network, knowledge, but also financial resources? The second step then would be to co-create a story about this desirable future. So this is about this cloud and in which the virtual power plant is in. So what do you want to be doing in the future? So for example, a community might want to become more energy self-sufficient, and maybe also include people who don't have a suitable roof or don't have the money. So also allow them to use locally generated electricity. From this future vision, you look then back to the current situation, and then you try to identify what kind of steps need to be taken to arrive at this future vision. So what are the main challenges? What are the main uncertainties? What kind of questions do need to be addressed? And who can help you with this? So what are the main important stakeholders that can help you in realizing this vision? So one obvious one is the distribution system operator, so the DSO, who is in charge of the local grid. So that can be a very crucial actor if you want to become involved in energy management. And if you go through this process, in the end, you will have, it shows you the first steps that you already can take towards this future vision, towards this desirable future, which can be a community-based virtual power plant, but it can also be the case that you want to do something else, of course. But we just assume that you all want to do this since you're here. So then we also develop tools. And basically, these are the tools that are being used as part of this backcasting process. And it helps you to better understand the context of your energy community. And also, for example, to write a story about this desired future. So how can you explore such a story? And one of the tools is especially maybe interesting is about the goals and activities. It helps you to identify what kind of flexibility services are there, but also which of them might be interesting for you as a community. So which of these activities match with your community values. So it is a kind of a decision tool, and it helps you to make choices on which of the flexibility services or other activities are most relevant to you as a community. And this also helps you to reduce complexity because it already removes some of the options, which allows you to focus a bit more. And well, the third part of the MORE model is the content. So it consists of crash courses. In this process, in the project, and also when we were talking about energy communities, well, we found out that when you want to go beyond energy generation and conservation or saving, complexity increases significantly. It becomes much more complex. It's very uncertain what will be possible. The technology becomes more complex. So therefore, we also developed crash courses. So basically, short parts of information that provide you with basic insights and information on topics like what is a community-based virtual power plant, energy flexibility or demand-side flexibility. What is it? What can you do with it? What's the history of the energy system? So how it's evolved over time and why demand side flexibility is becoming more relevant nowadays. But also the new European energy policies, or the directives just discussed also by Roland. There's also a part on community engagement. So community engagement is already a challenge in a generation project, but it becomes more challenging if you want to engage them in a very complex project with or more long-term project as well. And we have some suggestions or more ideas on how you could start with this. So it's not a basic approach that you can just apply in your community, but it provides you with some ideas on how you could approach this. And this is based on experiences with projects within the 3 pilots, but also insights derived from the discussions we had with the replication communities. So the communities that we tested this model with, which helped us develop this model. So this was only a brief presentation on this the MORE model, and which we use to support 6 energy communities in Belgium and the Netherlands. And well, what we found is that the MORE model helped them to reduce the complexity and to help structure their thoughts. And for some of them, it helped them to, well, to stop dreaming and to start working towards this envisioned future. So it's in that sense, it's proved to be helpful. It's, of course, it's still an ongoing work to grasp all the complexity and to also collect more information and more helpful tools to further help them. Well, if you want to know more about the MORE model or the starter's guide that also Sylvia just discussed, or the CFPP project in general, well, please take a look at our website. I will share the link in the chat, or just send us an email. It's always fine. Well, thank you very much for having us. And
okay, thanks a lot, Luc. Yes, and yeah, I remember from your last sentences, from dreaming to yeah, making this real, to start working, and that's what we will do next now. So we will invite two communities to share their experiences. So first of all, Pau from Som Energia, maybe you can take the floor and yeah, present your case for Som Energia.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. And thank you, Luc and Sylvia. It looks a really interesting model, the MORE model, and I would like to learn more about it. I will try to share my screen. I just hope you are already seeing my screen. Okay, so yeah, I'm Pau Peñella, and I will try to share some learning that we get in FlexScope with all of you. So I will split the talk in 3 parts. I will start giving a bit of context, comparative context, but also a bit of national context. Then I will go through what we have been testing in FlexScope and some analysis with it. And then I will finish with some conclusions and possible next steps. Yeah. So quickly here, Som Energia was founded in 2010, so 10 years now. And it's a retailer and producer cooperative of renewable energy. Actually, the retailer part has been growing quite faster during last years. And we've been the first 100% renewable supplier in Spain, and later on some others came along. And nowadays we have 70,000 members and a bit more than 123,000 contracts. Most of them domestic for domestic users. Yeah. So when it comes to flexibility, we want to use 2 main drivers, and the first one would be self-consumption. And again, to put a bit of context, I would like to say that in Spain we have a new self-consumption regulation frame since 2019, which supposes the end of the so-called sun tax and it added a simplified compensation mechanism, which is a mechanism where a prosumer can, the surpluses that the prosumer inject into the grid can be compensated at a certain price in your monthly bill. This is something new from the old regulation, and now we are also able to share energy with our neighbors within 500 meters or even farther if you are in the same low voltage cabin. So this is a completely new situation here in Spain. And what we are doing in Some Energy is to promoting self-consumption by running collective purchases of PV panels. Nowadays we are running 23 collective purchases all around Spain. Actually, the first one was even before the new regulation, and nowadays in two of those areas, because this is running per areas, per regions around Spain, in two of those areas they are running the second edition. So it looks like it's a successful model. People like it, and also it's generating an impact in the cooperative, because we currently have around 2,000 prosumers, and half of them come from those collective purchases. And when it comes to collective self-consumption, this is going at a lower pace, but it's moving forward. Yeah, and the second driver that we want to use for flexibility is dynamic prices. So in Some Energia, we are planning to offer dynamic tariff linked to the day-ahead market prices, and this will happen soon in the upcoming months. So since until now, we have been offering fixed price, and now we also want to offer variable prices to our users. It's also worthwhile to mention that in Spain, from April on, we'll have a new grid fees structure that will add price variability. So nowadays, the domestic users, they can choose to have or not to have the day and night tariffs, so 2 time slots. So from April on, all domestic users will have 3 time slots: high, medium, and low fees for the grid. And this will create a retail price similar to this. Here we plotted 2 days. So you see during night hours, the fees are low, then go to medium 8 to 10. They go peak at noon and during the evening, and they'll go back to low prices during the night. So you see these big steps are due to the grid fees new structure, and small variations within one of the steps is due to the day-ahead market. And yeah, this is intraday variations, but if we have a lower view, this is the price variation during last year in the day-ahead market in Spain, and we've seen that we had a lot of variations. This is the effect of the first lockdown. This is the effect of the cold wave we have this month, and we hope that we probably have more variability when more renewables, every time more renewables are connecting to the grid. So we could have even more variability than this year. So yeah, and then I took this figure from our colleagues from the CPP project. I just hope there is no problem with that, because it helps me to explain what we want to do. So in the past, we've been passive consumers, but we founded Some Energia, so we did this step forward at community level, and now we are promoting or installing self-consumption. So we are doing this step forward at individual level. So the idea is to use flexibility driven by self-consumption and dynamic prices to do this next step, both at individual and at community level. So this is the general idea. So yeah, going to what we have tested in FlexScope. So our objectives in the project were to use flexibility in order to maximize consumption from the PV rooftop, and also to use energy when it is cheap according to the spot prices. And we wanted to do that with the heat pump as a flexible asset. So what we did in FlexScope is to enroll some members of the cooperative in order to participate in the project as a pilot participants. And we deployed some devices in those dwellings. We deployed thermostat controllers in order to control the heat pump. We also deployed clamps in order to monitor the consumption of such heat pumps, but also the total home energy consumption or the PV production. And we also deployed temperature sensors in order to control or operate the heat pump properly. And all those devices are connected to the FlexScope smart box, which acts as a gateway and sends the data to the FlexScope ecosystem, where the data is stored, the data is analyzed, and the controlled signals are generated and sent back to the smart box and back to the heat pump. So with this setup, with this framework, we ran some tests during last autumn. Most of them were successful, some less successful. So we concluded that this setup is useful in order to go for those objectives. But we realized that we had really too short time periods for testing in order to extract real usable conclusions. So we wanted to have more insights on the effects of the long term of those optimizations. So we decided to build a model where you have a house with a heat pump, an air-to-water heat pump. We decided to go for an air-to-water, for an air-to-air heat pump because those are the most common in Spain, more than air-to-water. The house is also equipped with PV panels and also with the battery. And this model is also fitted with the market signals. Here we have some of the characteristics that we defined for the model, for the PV size, the battery, heat pump, and so on. Also for the market prices, we decided to use the new grid fees structure because this is what we're going to have in Spain in 2 months. And we decided to avoid prices of 2020 because they were really affected by the pandemic. So with this model, we ran it 2 scenarios. The first one is without optimization, where we ran those scenarios for a whole year, for a full year. And the first one, the no optimization, is the heat pump heats when it's needed, which is called thermostatic control. Yeah, we also define it boundaries for temperatures different from the night and the day. And actually, we took the same that our users define it for the testing period. And the second scenario, it's where the optimizations play a role. And this is MPC optimization. It's a price-based optimization where the PV generation is considered as free and also takes into account the variable prices. So as I said, we ran those optimizations for a year, for a full year, and when comparing those 2 scenarios, we found those results. In a house with the PV and a heat pump, you could save, you can gain 6% of savings for heating consumption, we took only into account heating consumption. And as an absolute saving per year, this would represent €9 per year. Of course, if you add a battery, you have much more flexibility, so the absolute savings are quite higher. And yeah, but some of our users in our FlexCo participants, they also had electric radiators as a heating system. So we decided to run the same optimizations, but removing the heat pump and adding electric heater. And we found that electric heaters have can provide less flexibility. So the 10% of savings are lower or smaller. But the efficiency of electric heaters are quite lower because of the cost factor of the heat pumps. So the operational costs of the electric heaters at the end of the year are quite higher. So even with less than 10% of saving, you could have even higher absolute savings. So those are the range of prices that we found that yeah, you could save with this type of optimization. Yeah. So here a bit of learnings that we get from the testing period and also from this analysis in FlexCop. We learned that, as I said, the potential of this optimization depends highly on the heating system. So yeah, electric heaters provide less flexibility, but as operational costs are higher, the absolute savings results also higher. We also learned that with an air-to-air heat pump, you hardly activate the heat storage. So yeah, that would be different with an air-to-water heat pump, and especially with underfloor heating. We also learned, this is interesting, that with these optimizations, they can provide more benefits in cooling periods. This is because in Spain we have cooling needs, and this happens in the same season where you have more PV production, so prosumers have higher surpluses during summer, and then the optimization can better perform here, and especially if you have a battery. But yeah, so we wanted to understand the effect of the level of insulation. The results I presented before are for a low insulated building, which would represent the average buildings in Spain. And we took the new building codes, which were published a few years ago, so only the very new buildings will apply to these high insulated buildings. And we found that with the high insulated building, you can extract much more flexibility, around the double. But as long as you are consuming less because you are high insulated, the absolute savings at the end of the year remain similar compared to a low insulated building. This was an interesting finding also. And we also compared two different climate zones. We used two different sites, Barcelona and Madrid. Barcelona would represent a milder weather close to the sea, and Madrid would represent a inner climate. And we found that for the colder zone, which in Madrid, would represent it in Madrid, as more heating is needed, the optimization performed slightly better there, but no high differences here. And yeah, and I would like to end to finalize with some conclusions and possible next steps. Yeah, we found that the revenue for self-consumption and dynamic prices optimization by using only a heat pump don't create a promising business case. So one possible next step would be to explore mixed services which may create higher revenues. So this would be a possible next step. And we spotted a significant challenge here, and this would apply to demand-side response in the domestic sector in general. Yeah, we found that the high initial investment cost that we have due to hardware, for instance, for controlling and monitoring the heat pump, this is what prevents us to have a real business case. So reducing this initial investment cost would be our interesting to focus in. Another conclusion that we get here is that we should focus on the users with higher flexibility. So our next step would be to explore other flexible loads like air-to-water heat pumps, but of course also EVs and domestic hot water. Here, yeah, domestic hot water and EVs, they are really in opposite situation. Electric domestic hot water is quite common, widespread in Spain, but the loads are smaller. And for the EV, you have higher loads, but they are still really uncommon in Spain. But we would like to explore those flexible assets in the future. And finally, we also understood that there is a need to have our own tools in order to have a direct control of the data of our members, but also in order to avoid depending from third parties or external companies. So our next step would be to start developing our own community-based tools, which this affects to the hardware, but also the optimization algorithms. And here, the RESCO PPP project is really promising. And that's all from my side. If you have questions or...
Thanks a lot, Pau. I saw there were some questions for you in both in the Q&A section as in the chat, so maybe you can already have a look, and otherwise we will come to these questions by the end of this webinar. So yeah, from Spain to the Netherlands. So René van Vliet, can you start presenting your experience in the Netherlands?
Yeah, I will. I will share my screen. I'm from Energie Samen. Energie Samen is a Dutch federation of around 600 energy communities in the Netherlands. And these 600 energy communities in the Netherlands have around about 100,000 members. The main activity of these 600 energy communities is having production facilities. So small windmills or big windmills or solar parks or combined production. And there these communities can have revenues to develop further activities. So what we now see is that we have now a new focus on the new heat transition. So we want to get rid of gas in the Netherlands and step over to alternative other heating sources and cooling sources. And there we see the energy communities very busy. But also we see ourselves busy in the flexibility part. So what is my dream or our dream for the future for these communities? We have drawn a picture for that, and I see a kind of a bulb, and in this bulb I see the energy community. And within this energy community, everybody is sharing their energy. But they are also not only exchanging energy, but they could, for instance, exchange energy. So somebody has on his rooftop his extra energy usage, and he gives this to the bakery, which makes his bread for him, and he exchanges his energy for this bread. Also, this community has its own windmill, which they use for their own energy uses. What they want is the profit which is made with this energy, they will keep it within the community. So for instance, the profit they make with energy, they can use that for building a new hospital or having better services for older people. This exchange of energy is then used to combine the community, and it should be based on public values and all these kind of things. What you also see, you see new other communities like this exist. It's ecological, etc. But between this dream we have, and that was what we have discussed in previous discussions, it's complex. How does it going to be, and what are the chances, and what else are the opportunities? There's a big cliff between what reality is and what we want to achieve on the end. And now you see a lot of initiatives to overcome this cliff and to say, hey, we should go that way. So it should be based on public values. You see also experience happening. So what we have done in the FlexScope project, we have looked, can we exchange this energy between our community, and we see that in the CVV project. Also, a lot of people are here sitting and say, hey, should we go this way, and should we do it ourselves? But maybe we could also the easy way, economic growth, and then we get the private comments. For instance, Shell with Sonnen, or Google will then later on, oh, we will solve all your problems and we will be your energy communities. But we want to have our own software and so on. So we want to achieve this goal. And although we don't know how it's going to be, we're all working on that. But next to that, we should also have a two-track policy, in my opinion. The first one, we should focus on our goal and make steps to achieve that. And therefore, we can do projects and have subsidies. But also, I think we should start with the early earnings. We should look for a business case where we can earn money now as a cooperative to develop these further activities. And therefore, and if you want to earn money with flexibility, there are loads of markets. These are all the markets where you can earn money with flexibility with all those responsible parties. But I didn't want to treat this as a whole, because in the last period we have learned from the Netherlands, from the Dutch situation, that we could earn money on this market, on the AFFR market. To make it concrete, what is then this AFFA market, and why can you earn money with flexibility? Then you have to understand, and most of you maybe will understand it, then you have to understand how the market or how the electricity system is working. We currently are now using our computer, and the energy for consumption of our computers during this webinar is produced now. The energy we are now using with our computers is not produced 10 minutes ago or 10 minutes up front. No, it's really produced now. So the consumption in the market or in the electricity system must be always exactly the same as the production. And if it's the same, then we have our 330 volts and we have 50 hertz. If it's not the same, if the consumption is on this moment, in this minute, higher than the production, then the voltage will go down, and the hertz will go down. And the same way around, if the production is higher than the consumption, then there is a problem. And if the hertz will go down to 48 hertz, then the system will collapse. So therefore, keeping balance in the system is very important, because the system itself cannot store energy. And that's the basic principle. Now, who is responsible for keeping this balance in the network? And that's the TSO, the Transmission System Operator. And in our country, we only have one system TSO, and that's called TenneT. If the minute starts, then the TSO sees that there is a difference between consumption and production. So they ask parties to help them with restoring the balance. And these parties are then the so-called balance service providers. And that's the TenneT. I can show you on an actual graph, which is now the current prices. This line is the price where you can sell energy on the market. So now, or at 12 o'clock, it's now 11:10, you can buy energy on the market for 50 euros or 53 euros for 1 megawatt in an hour. Here you see that there was a shortage in the market. You see that here, currently 11:08, there is afregelen, TenneT is requesting, please, can you lower the energy production? And if you lower your energy production, you can earn 33 euros a megawatt. So here, TenneT 11:09, they asked the market, please, can you lower your energy production or lower your energy production? You could also say higher your energy consumption. And if you look at the time, yesterday at here at 17:45, you could receive 275 or 78 euros if you could stop producing energy. So on the one hand, you can sell your energy to the market and you can earn 50 euros or this price. But if you stop producing energy, you will receive 280 euros during this time frame. So I tell that to my neighbors, if you stop using energy, they will give you 200 euros a megawatt. And then they think, huh? So I stop energy and I get money for that. And that's then the AFFR market. So you can earn money on this AFFR market. I go back to my presentation. So if you can help the TenneT to support to keep the system in balance, you can earn money as a balance service provider. But to earn money on this AFFR market, you need at least 1 megawatt of flexibility. So the possibility to go to lower your energy usage or to higher your energy usage, or the possibility to stop producing or to produce more energy. But to be active on this market, on the AFFR market, you need at least 1 megawatt to be a so-called balance service provider of the TenneT. Now, therefore, we have in Heeten, it's a village in the Netherlands, we have a cooperative, it's called Endona, and they are the owner of this solar park. So the citizens living here in Heeten are the owner of this solar park. And on the solar park, we have installed batteries. And in total, we have then 1 megawatt of batteries. And for now, and these batteries are then also the revenue which is coming from this solar park and from this battery is flowing back to the community for the citizens living here in Heeten. What we have done now, we have set up an aggregator, a BSP, and they are using the flexibility of these batteries. So now we are able to store energy from the solar panels into the battery, and on the time when the TenneT is asking, please, can you give us more energy? Then we can unload the battery and so give to the network 1 megawatt. So we have set up the aggregator and we have made a connection with the TenneT so we can sell this energy. And we do that on the so-called AFFR market. There are 3 other markets, the FCR and the MFFR market, but don't bother about that. We now focus on the AFFR market. So we have installed this battery. We have an aggregator in between. We sell this flexibility to the TenneT. And for this flexibility, we receive money. And what we have found out now, or from several other experience and products, the revenue you can earn is between 54,000 euros or 80,000 euros a year per megawatt. So it states if you have 1 megawatt of flexibility in this market or in these markets, you can earn between 45k and 80k a year. And now we are finding out but by doing this in practice, can we really earn this money? And if we can earn this money, is then there a business case for having a big battery? And we believe that it can be, but we want to prove it. And that is why we are doing this project. Now we have this aggregator who is delivering the services. And that we are setting up now in the Netherlands. We are setting up so-called Flex Lokaal. That is a balanced service provider. This Flex Lokaal is owned by the energy communities. So if you are the one who is using the services of Flex Lokaal, you are also the owner of the application. And the reason is, of course, that all the money we want to are earning there, we want to keep that in the community, so the community can determine themselves what should we do with the profit. This Flex Lokaal can then offer services to energy communities. And these energy communities, they have assets. They have assets, for instance, solar or wind park. So we could say now to the energy community, if you have a solar park, we can control your solar park and we can shut down the energy users. So if we can earn money by stopping producing, then we will shut down your solar park, and with that we can then earn money. So that's one step we can offer. The next step is that if you also have a battery, then you can go 2 sides, because you can not only stop producing energy, but you can also deliver additional energy to the market as flexibility. So that we have as an offering for the energy communities. And that's then based on the AFFR market. Next step is that we are going to offer also APEX services for members of the energy communities. And these members of the energy communities can then have electric vehicles or, for instance, have a battery. And then I come back, if you look at APEX controlling, then I also look back at what Paul also told before. Today, this is the prices you have to pay for the energy. So now you have to price, it is 11 o'clock now, around about 12 o'clock, you have to pay around about 5.5 cents for the electricity. But if you go in the afternoon, it will be 4.5. And if you go here, so I, as a user, I use this energy. If I load my car at this price level, I have to pay 5 or 6 cents. But if I load my car, my electric vehicle here at this moment, I only have to pay 4.6 cents. So, and this is known upfront. So the day before, now you know if I produce that. And as an energy supplier, you can afterwards send the bill, and you can say during this hour, you have used this amount of energy and you have to pay 4.28 cents. So they're in controlling, and then I go back to my base. If you can control APEX, you say to the user, please load your car, electrical vehicle, on the moments where the price is very low, and therefore you have lower energy uses. And then we can combine these services, because if we have the flexibility of an electrical vehicle, so we can control the speed of loading, or faster loading or slower loading, or loading at pin. We have the flexibility of the solar and the wind parks, and we have the flexibility of batteries, maybe also batteries installed in the houses or in the power plant. With these, we can combine and then make the best offer to our energy computers, including members. Why don't you see here a heat pump? Because that's what we have found out in the FlexScope project. A heat pump is also flexibility. But we have found out, and that was also what Paul was telling, if you have a heat pump, you can earn with that heat pump around 30 euros a year for the flexibility of a heat pump. But then if you know you have to invest a lot of money to control this heat pump, if it already was possible, you have to invest around about 500 euros to control the heat pump. And also you have to have additional fees. So there is not yet a business case for controlling heat pumps. But there is maybe, or we believe that there is a business case for electrical vehicles, and there is a business case for batteries. So this FlexLokaal, as a balanced service provider, is going to deliver flexibility to energy communities with solar and wind parks, and later on we can combine that with Apex controller. But for doing this, we need software. And that is what also Pau and also Roland were saying. We should have our own software as energy communities, because if we use software of others, others are in control. But until now, we don't have this software. So we decided to have suppliers for one of the backend system who is controlling the and steering the flexibility. And also we decided to have a commercial partner who can deliver us the gateway in the home. And also we have then an energy supplier which can control the Apex. What we said within this FlexLokaal, we as cooperatives, so the user or the member is the owner of the energy community is the owner of FlexLokaal. So the member is via the energy community the owner of the data. So we said we should focus that we at least should be the owner of the data and have the intellectual property of all these controlling algorithms. Because there we can focus on. And later on, and that is also our game, if, for instance, that was also what Paul was telling about, later on, if we have our own gateway, which is then developed by the RESCOPE EU VPP project, we can say, okay, we stop the contract with the commercial supplier and we can have our own gateway. And later on, when we are steps forward, we can have maybe our back-end systems. So that's what my story was. For instance, we have all this dream where we can do everything, but then we have to start somewhere, and we start with the business case. And now we are going to develop this offer we can deliver to energy community members in which you can really earn money. And that is what I wanted to tell.
Thanks a lot, René, for your presentation. That was very interesting. I saw there were also some questions for you, so maybe you can, in between, have a look at questions for you in the chat and the Q&A. Yeah. What I suggest now is that, so the next part of this webinar is that we have a small panel discussion. So I would like to invite all panelists to switch on their cameras so we can see you. Yes. And then if you want to give an answer, then you can unmute yourself, and hopefully that works like this. After this panel discussion, we will take some of the questions. So feel free to keep on posting. Maybe the easiest is actually to, if you have a concrete question, to put it in the Q&A section so we can take questions from there. Yeah, it was super interesting to hear from all of you. Yeah, the many possibilities there are now on the front of flexibility. A question I have is actually about, indeed, the engagement of consumers. How excited are citizens about these new services? Are they showing some excitement to really get involved? Maybe Sylvia, you can take the question. Yes.
Yes, thank you. I'm still thinking also about René's presentation, which was very interesting and very innovative, I think, what you were telling. But that's something that will be probably come back in the discussion when we discuss business cases later on. So your question is, how excited are citizens about these new services? I think we maybe should ask the question a bit different, namely, what are citizens excited about? Doing something together, making their co-housing project a success, engaging young people via schools in the energy transition, or yeah, said differently, these services that we are talking about, they are not a goal, right? They are a means towards another goal which is meaningful to the citizens. So, and that means that the question is not so much how to get these citizens enthusiastic so that they come with us, but rather how can we make sure that we design, develop, or co-develop and communicate these services in such a manner that they fit with the needs, ambitions and awareness of the citizens. And that means that you also have a bit of a phased approach towards that. So I can imagine that René's story will not directly appeal to all citizens. So you can also think of steps in whereby you take them along, and maybe Luc can elaborate a bit more on this as well.
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. Well, I've been reading a lot of papers also on smart grid projects and set up by mainly incumbent actors, or maybe the DSOs and other actors involved. And they show that it's very difficult to engage citizens in projects that are mainly focused on stabilizing the grid and to really support the DSO, basically. So if you start from community values and goals and start from what the communities are excited about, it might become easier to engage citizens. And for instance, in Lune, one of the pilots, they have organized a couple of workshops to discuss with community members what would you be interested in, what values are important, but also what kind of activities, what kind of flexibility services relate best to these values. And based on that, they are developing an energy management system. And then you combine a couple of services. Some might be needed to pay for the rest, but some are maybe the ones that are most interesting to the community. So that way you can make an interesting offer, or create an interesting offer together with the community instead of offering something to the community.
Yeah, I may go. Yeah.
Okay, wow. So, I just want to ask, maybe just share your insights related to.
Yeah, I like it, your approach, Sylvia and Luc, because yeah, our feeling from the workshops in Flexscope is that people they don't really understand what are ancillary services. It's like something far away from them, and now people in Spain is focused on production, and specifically in the domestic sector. People is focused on self-consumption. Now is a boom in Spain because of the new regulation. So people now is thinking at installing PV rooftop, and this brings me to your argument, Sylvia, because now they have PV generation in their rooftop, and they, by the first time, they understand that there is a need of shifting the loads because they the production and the consumption doesn't match. So the prosumers, so people with PV would be, we've seen them as early adopters of flexibility services. So probably the first people we are targeting is they are prosumers. Probably maybe people with batteries, they are also interested in dynamic prices, or people with EV. So yeah, our first step would be related to self-consumption in a sense.
Okay, thanks. Maybe René, you can still share some insights from Energie Samen. So from early adopters to engaging more and more citizens. How would you do that? Or
now I'm very enthusiastic about this future where we can share energy and all these kind of things. But if I talk with my neighbors and with my friends, they don't care at all. They listen to me and they think, go away. Energy, it's a low interest eat something. So they say, I switch on the lights and who cares? So sometimes it's very frustrating that other people are not so involved as I am because they don't care. So I think it's very difficult to involve people. It's, for instance, also if you have general or combined energy production, and therefore you can share the revenue within the community. But then if they say, oh, we have a windmill in our neighborhood, everybody say, no windmill, because that's not in my backyard then. But that doesn't mean that we have to continue. And I see a lot of communities in the Netherlands who are active and who are early adapters and who are working on it. And like we do in Luna, people are engaged and they are looking for more autonomous. And also what I believe, we should make real products which are attractive for consumers. So they should be attractive, making consumer products delivered from a cooperative spectators. So I believe that if we can deliver a product to consumer or to citizens in which we say we can control your EV and thereby you're doing something good for the community and you're doing something good for the grid, but additional you have a better service, then I suppose they will join us. But we have to start with the early adopters.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for your answers. And maybe that brings us, I mean, imagine we have all these citizens engaged and they want to be part of this type of services. Maybe from the more technical side, the technical perspective, is the digitalized energy system is ready? Is it operational yet? I don't know who wants to take that question.
Nope. Oh, maybe Sylvia start.
Sylvia?
Yeah. Can I just make one additional remark to the previous?
Sure. Go ahead.
Because I think we've heard a few times we should start with the early adapters and we should focus on the prosumers and look where there's most flexibility. But there's also a trap there. If we want a community energy in the future, we should not think that the benefits for those households who actually have a lot of flexibility to offer will sort of trickle down to those households who do not have the possibility. So in each initiative, it's, I think, crucial to find ways to engage a variety of community members, including the ones that are vulnerable and that have less opportunities. And I just want to mention it, and I know that a lot of these projects keep this in mind and try to focus on that a lot, but there are also quite some challenges related in that. And it would be good that if we look at innovative projects, we try to make sure that we engage not only the front runners.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point you raised. Indeed, and then I don't know if somebody else still wants to add on what Sylvia was saying. No, maybe then we can.
Yeah, I wanted to
René.
Sylvia, of course, but that's my dream. My dream is that you have social communities and where all the people can join and they can profit from this new energy. So that's my goal, because to keep the money inside the community. So that's my goal. But to achieve that goal, you have to start somewhere. And my thing is start something in which you can earn money. And with this money, you can achieve the next step in your goal. And if you want to make money, then yeah, sorry, you have to start with these things like EVA-Varmarkt, where you can make money. But this money you can then spend to grow the community so that others can all join.
Okay, good. Sylvia, do you still want to react or no? Okay, perfect. Yeah, then maybe we can discuss a little bit, the technical perspective. In terms of digitalization, is the market ready to implement these services?
I said no. Because if you look at within the FlexScope project, we have worked for 3 years now. And the aim was controlling heat pumps. And after 3 years, we are still not able to control air to water heat pumps in the Netherlands. So it's a very difficult job. Because what you see for all these assets, for instance, they have different communication protocols or different ways to control them. So therefore, these small assets. But on the other end, you see a lot of technical applications which can control solar parks and wind parks and be controlling and connected to the EVA-Varmarkt. So on the other hand, you see developed solutions which can do that. But technically, it's not yet completely ready for achieving our thing. And also what you see, and that's also my thing, you see then initiatives, but these are more than commercial initiatives. They have commercial software, and I see a lot of initiatives in the Netherlands. They get projects, and they say, "Oh, we are going to develop a tool which energy communities can use for them." And I say, they ask us to join these projects for free. And I said, you are going to develop something for us, but not with us. And you're only making a commercial tool in which you can make yourself richer. Are we the owner of the software later on? Yes or no? No, they want to make a business of that. But there, on the other hand, I see initiative within, but I'm also very hopeful, the initiative like we have the Rescope VPP project. That's nice. There we can have our own gateway based on open source software, and then we can grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. Maybe Pau, you can,
Yeah,
from your perspective, the barriers, the technical barriers.
I completely agree with René that the system is not the digital energy system is not ready yet. What we've seen in FlexScope is or we focused on heat pumps, so we've seen that some heat pumps are internet connected, but they don't use open standards, so it's difficult to integrate those in your system, or they are not internet connected, so you need to deploy devices in order to control them, which makes your investment cost higher, and then you don't have business case because of it. So at least for the heat pumps, they are not ready to be to participate in such a markets, or not yet. This might be different for EVs, which are EVs and chargers are already smart, let's say, so it's easy to connect to them. So this would be probably the next step regarding flexibility. And in the other side, I've seen one comment in one question in the chat. They were asking about smart meters. In Spain, we already have smart meters for almost all domestic users, but we don't have the data in real time. We have the data a few days after. So yeah, if you don't have the data real time, you don't really have nothing, because you need to operate in real time, right? So yeah, so from one side, the device is not ready and the meters neither. So we need to wait some years to get a fully digitalized energy system.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And how do you see, like, in which term do you see? Say a couple of years? Do you have
probably more? Probably more.
idea about how long and maybe is there a way to actually make this faster, this digitalized? How can you encourage this? How you can take away this barrier? Do you have an idea about that?
Probably more than 2 years. For instance, the Spanish TSO is planning to lower down the granularity of the meter readings from 1 hour to 15 minutes in 2024. So this is the time of scales that we are moving. So maybe, yeah, more than that. Also in the FlexScope, for instance, we rely it on the internet connection of the users on their dwellings. This might be good for a pilot project, but in a real deployment, if you lost connectivity with your devices, you're done. So this is something to take care also.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks. Luc, I see you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, maybe I can add something based on the lessons learned in our project, in the CFPP project. We also experienced, or the communities also experienced, that it's difficult to control all kind of devices, the heat pumps, electric vehicles, that you all have these different standards and different protocols. What they did in Energent was basically installing batteries and solar panels and inverters from the same brand, which is possible to control and to communicate with. So that is a solution to focus on the ones that are easily to be controlled. And this is also something that they are doing in Luna. They're making a list of heat pumps, electric vehicles, or the chargers and things that are that can be controlled with their energy management system. So they want to engage citizens already early on and make them aware of, if you choose a heat pump, make sure that it can be controlled easily. Because some of them, it's way too expensive to control them or to include them in the energy management system. But this also shows that it's community engagement is about engaging them already when they start buying their heat pumps or an electric vehicle chargers or solar panels, because now in Luna they have so many different brands, which makes it very expensive and very difficult. And if you start with this early on and you already have an idea, so this is why these kind of lessons, and especially if there's a RESCOPE virtual power plant, it would be very interesting to have a list as well of which devices can be connected to this system, so that early on we can help citizens to buy the right appliances that can be easily controlled, and then CVP might have flexibility might have a future. So yeah, that is also why a backcasting process we discussed as part of the MORE model might be an interesting way to envision a long-term future, and then say to your community members, like, to go there, we need to think already now on which heat pumps to buy. And yeah, but it's definitely challenging.
Okay, thanks a lot. Somebody else that want to share some challenges from experience from the technical side? Maybe we can then move on to another, I mean, a related question, more about maybe the business case, and reflect a bit on the financial perspective of those services. Yeah, can we develop a self-sustained service? Because I mean, we heard that a lot of projects are involved, but can a cooperative develop a service that is self-sustained with today's market prices kept in mind? So about the business case, somebody wants to reflect on that? Sylvia?
Yeah. Well, maybe not exactly the business case to start with, but as part of the CVPP project, we did a thought experiment. So we developed a business model using a business model canvas from the perspective of community values. So a community-centered business model canvas. And then we assessed that model against real-life market conditions. And there we concluded that a community-centered business model was not really feasible, because the market won't allow energy cooperatives the various roles that they need to adopt when developing a VPP project. And of course you can do that, and René also gave an example, but you need to have some scale to be able to do that, and you need to have the financial clout, you need to have the knowledge, the technical experience, and often you also need to be involved in one or multiple European R&D projects that enable you to get it started, right? So, and of course in the Netherlands we have these sandboxes where you, well, the latest was stopped before it started, I believe, but it allows you to be exempt from some of the rules, but not the tax rules. So you still will have to pay your taxes on the energy flows. So the current organization of the market is not such that a smaller community energy project can easily develop a project based on a viable business case. And in many, with the replication communities, we also discussed with the partners these issues and how it would be a good idea for them to also try to become part of another Interreg project or a Horizon project. And that is, of course, also what these projects are meant for, because we talk about innovative projects.
Yes, thanks. Indeed, maybe Pau or René, do you want to share some insights from your experience on the ground on this? Is there a business case for this type of services?
Yeah, I think that it's a matter of a scale. If you go for a setup like René proposed it, with solar parks and big batteries, maybe you can just look at one market, one single market, and you can get enough revenue from it. But when it comes to the domestic sector, the amount of flexibility you are dealing with, they are quite smaller. So probably an aggregator looking at domestic sector or focused with domestic users will have to look at different markets in order to create the right revenue streams. So depending of the maybe depending of the moment of the year, you look one market or the other, or so. Yeah, with the current prices, we've seen that with the heat pump in specifically, we've seen that there is not a real business case in one single market. And what prevents us to have this business case, basically, it's not only the smaller revenue streams for a small flexibility you have in domestic sector, but also for the, as I said, for the higher initial investment cost. So with this high investment cost, you have the break-even point. So the number of years you need to run this business case in order to match costs and revenues, it's too high. And then maintenance start playing a role, and we haven't explored this yet. But if you have devices running for 10 or 15 years, then you need to go for maintenance maybe, and then this is extra cost. So yeah, there's some thoughts here.
Okay, René, do you still want to add something upon what?
My whole presentation was about the business case, find the business case, and I believe there is one, and that, but you see something happening there because these small communities are flourishing because they are local people working together to keep everything local, and that's the strongness of this community, this movement in the Netherlands. But on the other hand, to achieve a business case, you have to have volume. So you need to have 1 megawatt or 2 megawatt, loads of assets. And then it's going to be organized, centralized in the Netherlands. And then these local people say, no, we want to do it ourselves. But we have to understand, I suppose, as communities that we do it locally, but we need to organize us on a national level to get the benefits from this business case. And I believe in this business case for solar parks and wind parks and big batteries. We have to prove it. And I also believe there is a business case in controlling EVs, electric vehicles, because nowadays I see in the markets in the Netherlands, suppliers coming up and say, I have a special contract for you for your EV. And you can have lower prices, but then we must be able to control your EV. So I see a business case for EV. And that's the reason why we also started with this big solar park and wind parks with batteries, then also extended with EVs. And start somewhere with making this business case and making these products. And then with the money and we earn there and with the experience we do, we can then add on additional projects funded by funded with subsidy. We can build on the knowledge further on.
Okay, thanks a lot. That was very clear. Maybe we can finalize this discussion so we can still have some questions from the audience, because I saw there was a lot of interaction both in the Q&A and the chat. Maybe Roland, you can join us for this, because I saw also your name popping up sometimes when there was a question. Maybe the first, I will have a look at the Q&A. Yeah, there was indeed one about business models, but from Bram Kleijs, but I think that was covered. Let me check. If you see a question you want to take, then give a shout. Most of them were already answered. Roland, you answered a question from Richard. Maybe you can share some details. The question was, can you provide any details on the digital services which communities have used to deploy VPP community projects?
Well, this is a very broad question.
Yeah.
Basically, when Some Energia and Energiezamen started there, well, Pau and René can testify. They were pretty agnostic about flexibility services. So really, the challenge of the old project was to build up this these services together with them from scratch. So there came all the questions of the home automation itself, how to get the data from the devices, how to get the consumption data, how to control the different devices. So all these questions of home automation, but then according to which parameters, and then there's a whole set of algorithm and calculation you can put in place to calculate individual devices, but also the behavior of several of them. And then for doing what? And then it's another set of calculations, so you can shape these devices flexibility to perform certain action or others, depending on which activity you want to do. So, and then there's a question of making this available and manageable for the different actors, for the prosumers themselves with an app where they can see what's the status of their consumption, or for the communities who play the role of aggregators, ESCO or whatever, so they can trigger the different actions. So all these layers come with different set of digital services which can be performed. And then I would say it depends on each community's situation. And it's really an open market for that from that angle.
Okay, thanks. Very clear. And maybe another question. I saw there was some discussion around it. Can somebody give an example of a cooperation between a DSO and then an energy community, Roland or somebody else? And I think the question was more outside the sandboxes. Is there like a conventional collaboration between a DSO and an energy community? Is there an example we need to?
Yep. I have one in Hete. There were, I told it, in Dona. They have this sandbox, and they did the GridFlex project that was keeping the energy within the houses, and to have a flat line on a local transformator. So that would prevent the DSO to make a bigger transformator, or to have to buy a bigger transformator, or a bigger extending of the network. And therefore, because they were in the sandbox, they made an agreement with the DSO that because they did not need to extend the transformator or the line behind it, they get a rebate or a discount on the network costs. And the discount was given back to the energy community. But this was only possible because they were working in the sandbox. We also talked a lot with the DSOs in the Netherlands, and they of course have this problem because all these balancer services are preventing for that we have to build a bigger network, but they don't want to pay for it. So the money we save for not expanding our network in the Netherlands, we don't get that money from the flexibility back. And now you see in the Netherlands there's a lot of discussion because we cannot have more windmills or solar parks, so the network is going to be too small. So now the DSOs are a little bit thinking, yeah, what are we going to do? But if I ask him, are you going to pay us money because you don't have to expand your network? No, that's not yet in their brains, or that's not yet possible, I suppose. So we have to live with the fact that we will not get money from the DSO in the nearby future. Maybe within 3 years, they come up with some things.
Roland, you want to add
I think it's a very good example of what could or should happen in the future. Though regarding Christina's question related to real market examples or real life examples, I think the second part of René's question covered it well. Like right now, the discussion is a bit tense with DSOs when energy communities come with a huge or rather big, it's rarely huge, but rather big energy projects. It's blocked until there's enough capacity in the distribution grid, and there's not a lot of doors open for innovative solution, or that the cooperative itself doesn't have the mean also to implement a flexibility solution or alternative solution. I think there's also a capacity to be built on that side, but clearly for now the DSO are still looking at the rather old business model of strengthening infrastructure before thinking about anything else. There will be a lot of regulatory work in the coming years with the EU DSO entity, which is meant to write down further regulatory network codes. Sorry, network codes is the right term. But yeah, time will tell if it goes in the right direction.
Okay, great, thanks. Maybe another question for Sylvia and Luc, maybe about the MORE model. It's a question from Florian Helfrich. With regards to the workshops you have organized to test and use the MORE model in action, how was the interaction between the energy communities on one side and the regulatory institutions or governmental actors? Can one of you maybe share some experience on that front?
As part of the workshops we did, there was no direct interaction during the workshops between the communities and these regulator organizations. But as part of the project, the 3 pilots, the people involved, were in contact several occasions, and also when policy recommendations are written and discussed with policymakers, and those things do happen. And we also, as part of the workshops, we identified what kind of actors, what kind of stakeholders are most relevant. Who do you need to realize such a project? And based on that, well, they will also identify who knows them, or do we know someone who can get you in contact with them? And so we try to help them to make that step. So it was not part of the workshops. This was more, the workshops were more focused on the community itself. In some occasions, there were some local people from municipality or other local stakeholders involved as well, but not on a national level. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Sylvia, do you want to add something? No? Let me go through the questions. Yeah, there was a question, but I think it's answered from Luc Guillermet. What kind of home business appliances other than HP storage EVS can be available for demand response? I think there was, I think Pau touched upon that. For René, Elke asked, to which extent do losses in battery efficiency impact the business case for flexibility? Maybe that's a good question.
That's a good question. We are finding out, and you can find loads of that. That's a separate discussion. So we have to find out, and we read we made studies about how much you could earn and these kind of things, and then we said we stopping reading all these studies. We are going to act, and we're going to build this 1 megawatt battery. We were funded a little bit, and we're going to find out. And then we are going to prove if there's a business case and what does it do with the losses, etc. But still, we believe there is a business case, although you have these losses and these kind of things. And we have read a lot about it. You can find lots of information, but now we're going to prove it. And you see it happening in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, there was a 25 megawatt battery built just only for delivering services to the TenNet for the FCM market. So there is a business case. So also, and so that's going to solve. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm just like aware of time. Maybe a last question. I see a question from Luc Guillermet. What about the smaller appliances like the washing machines? Is there can we do with that? Roland, you wanna?
I think it's a good question. People have in mind like demand response, okay, but then will I have to wait for electricity to be available to get my my washing machine done, or how is it going? First, it's very obvious that residential appliances are smaller than the industrial one, which are already quite where the market is quite developed. Then the commercial and the public buildings one, they are bigger scale. Then comes the residential one, and the smaller the loads are, the hardest the business model and the related cost and so on and so forth. So for the very small appliances that are used only once in a while, you have to make profitable, the chip and the connection and the business model around it, which makes it always challenging. But in the near future, when we'll have automatized and made profitable the other loads, this will be the remaining ones. And there are some fridges, for example, could be used. They are used at an industrial scale. Restore in Belgium actually was one of their first business to automate industrial fridges and to make them participate to frequency, to quickly adjustable loads. Something we could do with small fridges, but then again, it's very small loads. So for near future, not now.
Okay, thanks, Roland. That was very clarifying. Maybe just it's 12 o'clock. We're at the end of this webinar, so unfortunately, I think we didn't manage to answer all questions. Although I think in all the presentations there were some contact details. So if you want to reach out to the speakers, the panelists, please do so. We will make this recording available as well as the presentations. So you can reach out to the respective speakers. Also, don't hesitate to reach out to me and Roland from Rescoop EU. You will find the flexibility report Roland was referring to earlier on a website. So it's published on a website today. So a lot of information can be found there as well. For the rest, as I said in the beginning, this is the last webinar we organized under this format because the FlexScoop project is coming to an end. But definitely we will keep in touch with all of you, and we will definitely continue the conversation and the discussions, because it's amazing to see how many people are involved and start thinking about this. I see it from the chat. So if people want to connect with each other after this webinar, you can always send me an email or Roland. We can see how we can connect, or maybe you already know each other. So yes, I would like to especially thank all the panelists for their great contributions. And I would like to thank the audience for attending this webinar. And have a nice day, and let's keep in touch. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Thank
day.
you. Bye bye.